So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Karaoke back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, November 3rd. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Tuesday. A good football game last night between the Giants and the Buccaneers came down to the wire. Legitimately came down to the final play of the game. It was a very good game. Was not expecting it to be that entertaining. As you could tell by my game pick, I had the Buccaneers winning big time. I did, in fact, get my pick correctly, though. Not the score part, but I did, in fact, predict it correctly. So that moves me overall to 82-40 on the season, which is, I guess is pretty good. 82-40, I guess it's pretty good, obviously. Now let me just get up to week 9 here. 0-0 right now. So, yeah, I guess, I would say it's pretty solid. But right now, these are how my game picks have been going. I'm overall of 82-40. I had an 8-6 week last week, and obviously we head into week 9. So 8-6 wasn't amazing, but like I said, when I was watching that game, I was like, I really don't want to go 7-7. 500 would not be very good. So this was definitely one of my choppier weeks of the season. I did go 8-6, but at the end of the day, I still finished 2 games above 500, and I'm still 82-40 on the season for game picks. I had an incredible night last night with my fantasy. I won in both leagues. One league, it got interesting. The other league, I felt very confident in. But I did, in fact, win in both leagues. One league, I won 94-83. The other one, I won, we do decimals in the other league, I won 94.72 to 94.14. I'm pretty sure how it was. So really was just unbelievable. Just real, or 94.74 to 94.12. So I won by 0.62, not even a full point. I beat my opponent yesterday, which was just absolutely crazy to me. It was a really, really good game there. So obviously, I'm glad I won in both fantasy leagues. Not much sports on today, obviously. But these are the topics today. We got the Giants versus the Buccaneers game. We'll talk all about it, talk of what happened, my thoughts on it, and kind of wrap up week 8 of the NFL season. Get ready for week 9 upcoming this Thursday. We got the Packers and the Niners playing. That should be a very good game. I'm assuming Packers will probably win. Niners are really banged up. They lost Kittle. Sherman's out. You look at their whole roster of injuries. It really is crazy. Garoppolo's done. And it is really crazy how bad their injuries are. So the Niners are going to be playing hurt. Next up, we got fantasy football results, players to add. I'm going to give you some results, give you players to add. If you're like me, I'm sure a ton of people in the NFL fantasy world are in a situation. George Kittle broke his foot. He's done for the rest of the season, unless if they make the playoffs. He's going to miss the next 8 weeks, which will end out the season. And with him out, a lot of people are looking for tight ends, I'm sure, so I'll kind of give you a little bit of a tip there. And then we move into the NFL trade deadline. I know I was going to talk about college football, but today I kind of felt like it would be right to do that. Trade deadline happens at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we still have a long time until it happens, but I'm going to kind of give you my trade deadline, kind of give you players, rumors. If anything pops up during the podcast, I'll talk about it. Kind of just that. I was thinking about doing like a special podcast from like 3 p.m. to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Don't know if I was going to live stream or not, but you would do a special NFL trade deadline. And every time a trade came in, I would talk about it. But I'm kind of leaning away from that. Keep your eyes out for that if, in fact, that does happen. I don't think I will do it. But I was thinking about doing it, obviously. But I might. Just keep your eyes out for it. So just watch out for that if, in fact, it does. I don't know if I am. Not sure, depending on after this pod and then, other stuff to do and stuff. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to want to do that again, but we'll think about it. I'll see I'll see if I do it or not. So just keep your eyes out for that, but we are on the final topic. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL trade deadline, kind of give you my thoughts, rumors, opinions, all that good stuff later on in the podcast. So with all that being said, this is the BSN Network podcast, and let's get right into it. So last night was a very entertaining game, to say the very least. I mean, I was very entertained. I was not expecting this game to go this way. I was not expecting one bit for this game to go the way it went. I was not expecting this at all. And it hurts the New York Giants again, as the New York Giants fall once again. Another close game, another loss that was a close game. They lost last night 25-3. Or 25-23, sorry, not 25-3. They lost last night 25-23. This game, to me, was if I was the Giants, and I understand, because I'm this fan too, at the end of the day, you could say so much about, and I say this all the time on the podcast, and it probably annoys a lot of you, so you could skip this part of the video. I know I say this all the time, but at the end of the day, right, you could have said, oh, we played hard, we did good, we did everything we can, right? We're doing this, we're doing that. At the end of the day, if you were the team on the losing side of the football, that doesn't really matter. And even Joe Judge said it yesterday. Even the announcers said it yesterday in the game. These Giants players, these Giants fans are annoyed. These Giants players are annoyed from hearing all these fans saying, oh, well, they're in every ball game, they're in games, they're in games, they're in games. People are annoyed. People are angry. You know, they're tired of listening to this, oh, we're in games. They got to win these games. A good football team would be winning these games. And this is a Giants team that does not have much talent. And the fact that they're in a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who you know a lot of people are big supporters on, you know, doing this, doing that, winning the world, or winning the Super Bowl, all that stuff. I don't know if that's all true. But a lot of people are high on them. And for the New York Giants to stick around yesterday, I know a lot of people was tired of hearing this. I know a lot of people hate when people say this. Oh, you're in games, you're in games, you're in games. I understand. But at the end of the day, you ultimately were. For a team that was 12.5-point favorites, for the Giants, who were 12.5-point underdogs, nobody had them winning. Almost 80% of people, 90% of people, almost 100% had them covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The fact that the Giants, it came down to literally the final play, that two-point conversion. The fact that they did that, they played a good game. Now, let's get to the fact of the players. Daniel Jones' turnovers have got to stop. And I've said this so many times, off the podcast, on the podcast, wherever I am. I have said this so many times. So many times. The New York Giants and Daniel Jones have got to get his turnover problem fixed. He said he fixed it in the offseason. He's came out this season, not got it fixed. Has not gotten it fixed. And last season, he struggled. People are like, okay, it's understandable. First year, new system, new coach, you know, in the NFL, you know, getting a little bit of that rust off, was put into an awkward situation, missed a lot of games, then came in to play, one of those things, right? And then all of a sudden, you go out, you play this season, people are expecting him and Jason Garrett to be good, and he's done nothing but turn the ball over. And Daniel Jones, if they want to somehow, some way win a couple more games this season, they've got to stop turning the ball over. They have to stop doing that. That has costed them way too much this season. It has costed them games. It has costed them possibly their season, all these turnovers, because the games translate into the season. They win four or five of these games that they're in, they would be sitting here right now 6-2, 5-3 instead of 1-7 if Daniel Jones doesn't make all these turnovers. I understand it wasn't all on Daniel Jones, but he did make some really bad throws last night, and he made some really bad turnovers. And this offensive line, outside of, you know, the beginning of the game, this second half, this offensive line really struggled. And this is a Giants team that's got to get going here. This was a game. This was a game too. Like, you, on this schedule, you were looking at this game and you were like, you know what, this is a win. Like, this game's really tough. But what if somehow we win this game? Last night they had it in their hands and they let it go. They were winning 14-3, 14-6 going into half. Brady looked awful. I'll tell you what, Brady did not look very good yesterday. I will tell you that for sure. Brady did not look very good. Now, meaning he did still have 2 touchdowns and threw for 279 yards and went 28-40. But there was a couple bad bad throws Brady made. He made a couple bad throws, and he was getting hit hard, too, yesterday. That's another thing. The Giants were able to get to him. But all in all, overall, the New York Giants have got to be better on the offense side of the ball. And that's a game you can't blow either. That's a game you cannot blow. You're winning 14-6 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that a lot of people, I'm not one of them, but a team that a lot of people think is going to go on and win the Super Bowl. I don't know why I keep on saying World Series. A team that a lot of people think is going to go on and win a Super Bowl. You held them to 6 points in the first half, and they still managed to come back and win that ball game. That is unacceptable for the New York Giants. You can't allow that. You can't have that happen. I notice a lot of times when teams do this, you're winning big against big teams, you come out and you completely switch your game plan. The New York Giants did that. The New York Giants early in the game were running good tempo. They were switching up a lot of the plays. They were running a little bit of runs. They had that trick play with Golden Tate. If you want to win the game, you're going to have to run those plays. The Giants did that very well. I don't know if it's something about losing teams, but when teams come out of the half, I notice they try to change their game plan. Do what was working for you in the first half. The defense makes adjustments, right? The offense might make some adjustments, but that doesn't mean change your whole game plan. The New York Giants in the first half was doing a lot of mix. They were doing a lot of runs, doing some throws, doing some trickery. They had a couple of those good plays. Second half, it was boring football for the Giants, meaning like boring plays, like the same stuff, like stuff anyone can do. A mesh route across the middle. A run up the middle, right? The Giants even were pitching the ball out. They were running some, play action, getting some, RPOs going, right? They were doing that in the first half. They were tricking the Buccaneers defense. And then they came out in the second half and looked absolutely flat and could not win the game. I noticed a lot of these coaches, I don't know if it's just me. I don't know what it is. I noticed a lot of these coaches, especially nowadays, especially teams that are struggling. If they're beating a really good team, I noticed a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, if they're beating a really good team, I notice they really struggle in the second half. Or even if they're within one score against a really good team, I notice they're struggling in the second half, and they're just not able to really just play the way they want to play. And the New York Giants really struggled in the second half. And that was ultimately, they scored 9 points in the second half. I mean, they only scored 9 points, people, compared to 14. 9 points. And I know there's a lot of questionable calls. I am personally a believer in you can never blame the game on the refs. I've said the whole time now. Do I disagree with a lot of the calls? Yes, but I also do think the Giants did hurt themselves. Daniel Jones doesn't throw those 2 interceptions. Who knows what those drives could have turned into? And I'm not just saying that because it's Daniel Jones. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it overall. If they come out in the second half and have the same game plan, don't switch much stuff up, do they win? Right? There was a lot of things that went into that game, and I don't think it was all the calls. Now, do I disagree with them picking up the flag? Yes. I think that final call of the game, I do think that was a pass interference, but, you can't blame that on the refs. You can never blame a game on the refs, right? The Giants, Daniel Jones doesn't throw those 2 turnovers, doesn't throw those 2 interceptions. Who knows what happens? He doesn't get sacked a couple of those plays. Who knows what happens? For example, you don't have that pass interference downfield. Buccaneers might not score that drive, right? There's a lot of things that could have went into that game. Like I said, if they would have stuck to their game plan, what they did in the first half, there was definitely a chance of there was definitely a big chance of the Giants winning that game. So the Giants, they got to be hurting after this one because this is a game that they had in their hands, in their grasps, and they threw it away. And I said this at the half. I didn't physically say it, but I was thinking this. This is the New York Giants game to lose. They have this game. This is theirs to lose. You might be thinking, well, of course, but it's a saying in sports. This was their game to lose. Meaning, they had their game. It was in order for them to lose it. Meaning, almost like if it was their game to lose. They had a win. The only way they lost that game is if they would play horrible. That was their game to lose. And the Buccaneers, I mean, it was just horrible. The Giants, that was their game to lose, and they did. They lost it. They had it in their hands, and they just lost it. They had it in their hands. They had it good. They had it in their hands, and then slowly but surely, I don't know what a good example is, slowly but surely, it got too heavy. Their hands lowered, and they ended up dropping it. And that's really what happened. So the New York Giants have to find a way to finish games. They have to find a way. And I'm noticing these type of games are happening a lot with young teams, if you know what I'm saying. Chargers, young team, has had a lot of that happen. Giants, young team, has had a lot of close games that they blew. Right? I notice it's happening with younger teams. The Falcons really aren't a young team. I mean, Gurley's kind of young. I mean, he's only his 4th season. They're not an old team either. I mean, they're bad. I mean, they're blowing games, but I wouldn't say they're a young team. I mean, they have a couple young guys on that team. Ridley's young. I guess they're kind of a younger team. I mean, Julio's been in the league for a long time, and so has Matt Ryan. So I wouldn't consider them a young team, but still, I noticed a lot of these teams that are blowing games late, they're young because they struggle late, right? Big moments of the game, sometimes they can't live up to all that hype. So the New York Giants fall again. And as for the Buccaneers, to be honest, I was watching that game. I didn't think Brady looked all that good. I mean, you look at the numbers, and he had a good game, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 279 yards, 10 yards was average on the throw. I don't know if he was. I mean, you could tell he was missing Godwin because he was trying to throw to the backup a lot. I mean, I thought Brady had a lot of overthrows. I don't know if it's just me. I mean, maybe you can comment down below. But sitting there watching that game, I did not think Brady looked all that good. Now, you look at the numbers, and he was good. So, numbers don't lie. So, I guess ultimately he had a good game. But from what I saw on TV, from what I saw when I was watching that game, I did not think he looked all that good. He had a couple overthrows. He had 2 to Mike Evans. He had 2 to Mike Evans. He had 3 to Mickens. I think he had 1 or 2 to Miller, I'm pretty sure. I think he had 3 to Miller as well. There was a couple guys in that game where he really missed. I mean, he really did miss. I know he missed Scott Miller on a couple, and I know he missed Jaden Mickens, who was one of their backups as well. I know he missed them big time. He missed them like 3-4 times. He had the one where he's wide open and couldn't catch it, and then he had the one too where he was under pressure, tried to step in the pocket and bounce the ball. So this was definitely a Buccaneers team that I didn't think Brady looked all that good. Now, like I said, you look at the numbers, he had a pretty good game, but from what I saw on TV, from what I saw with my eyes, I did not think he looked that good. And this defense held up late. I mean, do I think it was a pass interference? Yes, but this defense did hold up late in the game. I mean, the Buccaneers really did. I mean, they did hold up late in the game. They were able to stop them. I mean, for a game that I would say the Buccaneers offense wasn't completely on, they were getting stopped a lot. Brady was getting hit a lot. You know, there was definitely some times in that game where that Buccaneers defense really stepped up, and that's what Todd Bowles has been doing. On this defense. He's making them step up. He knows they have a powerful offense, but on a night like that, where their offense isn't going so well, Brady got frustrated. You know, Giants are almost under Brady's skin. Offense isn't clicking. You could tell Brady's missing Godwin, one of his main assets, making some bad throws. Todd Bowles and that defense gathered together and said, you know what? This offense isn't playing stellar. You had Ronald Jones with the fumble. This offense isn't playing stellar. You know what this defense does, though? If you want to win this game, we got to step up. And the defense did do that. Now, late in the game, the Giants did drive on that 4th down and 12 and, ended up scoring. But obviously, ultimately, the 2-point did not count. And like I said, this was a defense, though, that definitely, they played well. I mean, they played well. I would definitely give it to them, to give that to them. I mean, they play some good football, and I think that's one of the big things too. You want to win these games, you have to play full 4-quarter of football, and I think the Bucs did that yesterday, and the Giants didn't. I mean, the Giants showed up in the first half and decided to go to home in the second half. I mean, it really was. It really was bad for the New York Giants. So the Buccaneers win 25-23. We now move on to the stats. We'll go take a look at Brady stats and all that stuff. So, Brady went 28 of 40, 279 yards, 10 touchdowns, or no, 10 was his average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 sacks, and a 106.1 rating. He played well. I thought he played really good. Brady, I thought he played really well. I thought he played very well. I'm sorry. I thought he struggled, but he, looking at the numbers, it looks like he did play very, very well. I mean, you look at the numbers, and that's the crazy part about sports. I've said this so many times on the podcast, right? You could look at a guy on the field, he could look ugly, he could look horrible, he could look like he doesn't deserve to be starting, or not that bad, but you could look at a guy on the field and be like, yeah, this guy's not a top 10 QB. Look at the numbers, and he got the numbers to be a top 10 quarterback. That's the same thing with Brady last night. I thought he made a lot of bad throws. I thought there was a couple plays in the pocket where he did not make good decisions. But ultimately, look at the numbers. He had a pretty solid game. And in the rushing, Leonard Fournette had 15 attempts, 52 yards, 3.5 was his average, 13 was his long. Ronald Jones only had 7 carries for 23 yards, 3.3 was his average. He had a fumble. He had 5 was his long. He had a fumble. And I don't know if it was Arians. I don't know who made the decision. But Jones, he fumbled early in the game, and after that, he got barely any carries. I mean, he maybe got a 3 after that. I don't know if it was they were benching him. I don't think it was the bench, but I don't know what it was. But whatever it was, he definitely did not. Something wasn't right there. I don't know if it was an injury, but I don't see how one fumble early in the game could really cost you that much playing time. Like, you're really going to be sat that long? I don't know what it was. So, you got to keep your eye out for Ronald Jones, especially fantasy people. He made things interesting. Evans had a good game. 5 catches, 7 targets, 55 yards, 11 was his average, and a touchdown. Gronk had another touchdown. 4 targets, 4 catches, 41 yards, 10.3 was his average, and a touchdown. Like I said, Brady missed some things. He missed twice to Evans, who were bad throws. He missed high to Evans twice. Mickens, he missed 2 to Mickens. I'm pretty sure was out. Like, he just made a bad throw on it. Then the one to Miller, he just bounced in the ground. I mean, it was just a very odd thing to see out of Tom Brady. I mean, it was definitely odd. I don't know, man. I don't know how these stats can be. I just feel like Tom Brady did not have that good of a game yesterday. But I guess he did. Now we move to the New York Giants stats. Daniel Jones went 25 of 41 for 256. 10.2 was his average, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 3 sacks, and a 74.8 was his rating. Tate obviously threw the 1 ball. Gallman had 12 attempts, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Morris, who came off the practice squad, at 28 yards and 3.5 was his average. Kind of just that stuff. Receiving wise, Shepard had 8 receptions, 10 targets, 74 yards, 9.3 was his average. Evan Ingram, a lot of Giants fans were hating on him. He had a pretty good day yesterday. 5 catches, 10 targets, 61 yards, 12.2 was his average. Kind of risky for Jones to target him that much. For a guy who last game really struggled. Obviously missed that throw, missed that catch that would have sealed the game against the Eagles. For him to get 10 targets the next game was pretty crazy. Jones, like I said, he missed a lot. I mean, he went 25 of 41. I mean, he missed a ton. I mean, he missed 16 passes yesterday. That is not very good. Slayton had 9 targets, 5 catches. Tate, 3 targets, 2 catches, and a touchdown. 31 yards, 15.5 was his average. Deion Lewis also had a touchdown himself. And Gallman had a touchdown. So those were your 3 scores for the New York Giants. And like I said, Tate, who knows if that was the last game in a New York Giants uniform. That would be interesting. Leonard Williams, I'll tell you what, for the New York Giants, he's been really, 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 really able to cause some pressure up front for the New York Giants. So he's obviously he's back to, I think, old form. I think you can kind of say. And back to the point with the whole situation with Brady. The Giants got him angry. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but he smashed his helmet. I mean, he went over to the sideline. He hit his helmet hard. I mean, he was angry. And the Giants got him to that. And I've always said this. I've always said this for a long time now. And I've always said this in the Super Bowl. It's whether you're talking about the Super Bowl, whether you're talking about just a regular game like yesterday. If you want to get Brady off his game, if you want to beat Tom Brady, you got to sack him. You got to sack him. Hit him. Even if that doesn't mean sack, push him. Hit him. Right? Do stuff. Right? Don't just sit around and let him have all the time in the world. So that's what the Giants did yesterday, but ultimately it wasn't enough for the Buccaneers. It wasn't enough to stop the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers win again. Some of the sacks for the Buccaneers, White had a sack, Pierre-Paul had a sack, this kind of stuff. Oh, and Sue had a sack. So there's definitely some sacks there. Murphy Bunting had a pick, and Davis had a pick. So those are your 2 picks. I mean, ultimately, like I said, the game was pretty balanced. I mean, it was a pretty fair game all in all. Time of possession, Bucks had 30 minutes, Giants had 29. So there you go, battles that. Buccaneers beat them there. Giants beat them in total yards. I mean, 357 to 344. Passing yards, 263, 256. So the Buccaneers beat them in that category. Rushing yards, Giants beat them 101. First downs, Giants beat them. Penalties, let me see. So penalties, they only had 3. So the Buccaneers had less penalties. Turnovers, Buccaneers had less turnovers. Sacks, Giants had 3 sacks. And total plays were obviously Total plays were 69 and 66. So the Giants actually led in a lot of these categories. I mean, if Giants led Giants led in a lot of these categories. And that's one of the big things. When you lead in those categories like that. That's ultimately probably going to come out on a win, but that was not the case last night for the New York Giants. Now, I think the Giants definitely dominated possession early on. They had a lot of good drives going. And that's what I've been saying. Like the Giants just had so many good sustained drives going. They had a lot of good drives going, like a lot of good things going for the New York Giants, and it just didn't work out for them. And in the second half woes continue for this football team, and I don't know what more has to be said. But the Giants got to be better. So the Buccaneers win. They move to 6-2 on the season, and that caps off Week 8. So that caps off Week 8 of the NFL season. Next week is Week 9. We'll just talk about some of the games. I'm not going to preview them, but I'm just going to give you the lineup: Packers, Niners, Bears, Titans, Broncos, Falcons, Giants, Redskins, Lions, Vikings, Panthers, Chiefs, Redskins, Colts, Seahawks, Bills. Texans, Jaguars, Raiders, Chargers, Dolphins, Cardinals, Steelers, Cowboys, Saints, Buccaneers, and then the Jets, Patriots on Monday night. So that's your next week's game. So Week 8, I mean, like I said, Week 8 was a pretty good success if you ask me. Another good week of football in the books. By the way, I wanted to read this stat. So Daniel Jones this season has had 34 turnovers in his first 20 games. Most since Ryan Leaf, 41 in first 20 games, 1988-2000. So, I don't want to say anything. I'm not going to start, but Daniel Jones he's had the most turnovers since Ryan Leaf did. And I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything at all, but I don't even want to compare him I'm not going to say it. But that is not good company to be in. That's all I'm going to say about Daniel Jones. That is not. You're talking about Ryan Leaf, the biggest draft bust in NFL history. That is not good company to be in. That's all I'm going to say. That is not good company to be in for the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. And like I said, these turnovers have to stop. They have to stop. I can't stress this enough. If you're a Giants fan and you're Daniel Jones, you have to stop these turnovers. You can't possibly be doing this every single week. Week in and week out. These turnovers are hurting his football team. Not only hurting his stats now, but he's hurting his football team. That's ultimately what he's doing. He's ultimately hurting his football team. That's what he's doing. He's ultimately hurting his football team. He's got the most interceptions in the NFL right now. He's got 9. And he's 21st in QBR, 61.8. So, I mean, for a guy who was highly recruited out of college, for him to come out and play like this, if I'm the New York Giants, I would be a little concerned because he's got the most interceptions in the NFL, and it's almost to the point where you're like, can he possibly stop turning the ball over? Like, is there any possible opportunity he hasn't turned the ball over? So, there it is. There's your New York Giants. So, Buccaneers win, move to 6-2. Coming up next, fantasy football. Alrighty, so yesterday was a pretty crazy day for fantasy football. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever had a fantasy game, whether that's last season, whether that was my first season of fantasy football. Now, my opponents have had a fantasy season like that. I've had my opponents have a fantasy season like that. But I don't know whether that was I don't know what it was. But last night was by far the closest game I have ever had in fantasy football. Without a doubt. Closest game I have ever had in fantasy football. Now, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's just, I don't know why. I don't know, if that's just, I don't know. But that is the closest game I've ever had in fantasy. So, last night was a entertaining game, to say the least. So, it was an entertaining football game to watch. And it was also an entertaining game for fantasy. So, I said yesterday on the podcast, if you want to go back and watch the podcast, you can. But I said yesterday on the podcast how, involving fantasy, tonight I need Ronald Jones to do good. I actually need the Giants offense to do good, which, outside of Daniel Jones' turnovers wasn't awful. And ultimately, I need to win. Because this was probably one of the more meaningful games I've played in fantasy football in a long time. This was a huge game for me, and I ended up winning. This is the first time all year I think I finished 2-0. Wait, is it? Let me see. Yes. Yeah. First time all season that I finished 2-0. Yeah. So, first time all season that in a week I finished 2-0, I'm pretty sure. I think, because I would have to really match it up. I think so. Yeah. So, I won in my one league 94-83, and I won in my other league what's it called? I won in my other league 94-83. And I won in my other league 94.74 to 94.12. So I won by .62. So I'm 4-4 in both leagues now, which does help me a lot because obviously my goal is to get up there. So the playoff bracket as it stands right now, is I'm the 3 seed, so I'd be playing the 2 seed. So actually, this week's a big game for me because I'm playing the 2 seed. So actually, as a matter of fact, I already beat the 2 seed. I already beat him once this season. So if I could somehow beat him again, that would bump me to 5-4. I could possibly try to get into that 2 seed spot because he has more points than me. But if I could somehow get my record to where I do have the better record, that would definitely help me out big time. So right now I'm 4-4 on the season. So I'm feeling pretty confident of my playoff chances. I'm feeling pretty confident that I am going to, make the playoffs. Something crazy would have to happen, but I'm feeling pretty confident I'm making the playoffs. And it is crazy that I'm 500 and I'm gonna make the playoffs. I mean, I'm only 500. I can get over the 500 hump again with another win this week. So that would be nice. But a lot of you are probably like me. We'll get into the fantasy thing. A lot of you are probably like me, and you lost George Kittle for the season. So, George Kittle is done for the season unless if they make the playoffs. But for fantasy terms, he is in fact done for the season. Now, he's out. They have not put him on IR yet. I'm not too sure why. I'm hoping they do because I will put him in my IR spot. I need to use that. I'll just put him there. If somehow he comes back, maybe he comes back short of time, whatever, I'm not going to completely drop him. I'll just put him on the IR spot. So, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see. But at the moment, right now, this is my lineup I'm working with this week. Now, this is changing. I already made moves this morning. First thing I did when I got up this morning was go on to fantasy. This is my lineup this week. Aaron Rodgers, Ezekiel Elliott, Chris Carson, Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson. Kittle's out, but I'm still making moves. Gurley, Rams defense, and Butker. Rams defense is on a bye, I understand. My bench is Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Moore, David Johnson, Bills defense, Robert Woods on a bye, Matt Ryan, and Ronald Jones. So at the moment, these are my 2 pending moves. Now, you might be questioning these moves, you might be thinking about these moves, but ultimately, I thought these moves were best for my team, best for my team here. So I'm adding Patriots defense and I'm dropping Bills. Now that's going to change. That might change. As a matter of fact, that might change. That's not a guarantee. I'm dropping Bills defense. I'm going to pick up Patriots. I'm going to look at the matchups. I'm going to look at what I do. Patriots defense isn't very good, but they're going against the Jets, and that's a favorable matchup in my opinion. So Patriots defense, I'm going to go ahead and say Patriots defense, I'm picking them up, dropping Bills. Bills has not been very good. They're playing the Seahawks. I don't know who would start the Bills defense this week. Next up I'm dropping Ronald Jones. I started Ronald Jones last week, or, obviously yesterday. Didn't like what I saw. Wasn't a big fan. First time starting him. it just kind of picked him up as, one of those things is if this guy can keep up what he's doing, I'll play him. I had a good week when I benched him, played him this week, had a bad week. I don't really need a running back now that Carson's back. So I'm going to continue with Gronk. And one of the reasons why I took Jones was because Ertz was injured and because of the fact that I needed someone with Elliott. Because Elliott's struggling. I'm not too sure how long he's going to be my starter, much longer. And the problem is with Jones is if Elliott keeps on struggling, if I had to pick between David Johnson and Ronald Jones, I might go with the Jones, but I think I might get rid of Jones. I just think I might. I don't know. It's just something about him. He's just not playing that. I don't know. I'm not buying into all this. And I am picking up Gronk. So I'm going to pick up Gronk. So for all you people out there who need a person to pick up at the tight end position, I'm personally taking Gronkowski. Now, is that going to change? Is that going to continue? Who knows what's going to happen with this? But all I know is I'm going to pick up Gronk. He's had a back-to-back touchdown weeks. Now, is this going to be my set? I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to waiver wire tight ends, which means kind of just go off of waivers for the rest of the season at tight ends. Start a tight end. If he plays bad, then pick up another one. Continue to go. And then I was hoping by playoff time, if I am in the playoffs, I would hope that maybe I get a lock at the tight end position. And just kind of try a couple of them out. So I'm going to probably try a couple tight ends out, see what happens. And at the end of the day, if, in fact, whatever tight end worked best for me, whatever tight end I felt worked best in the system, I will keep and probably lock him in if I make the playoffs. So that's probably the deal there. So Gronk this season's 15th in his position ranked. 6.3 was his average points. And he's had a touchdown. He plays New Orleans this week. Then he has Carolina, who's a weak defense. Then he has the Rams, who are a good defense. Then he has KC, then a bye week. And this is what I was really looking at, is down the stretch of his schedule. The defenses are awful. He's a bye week 13. Okay, week 13, that will be the first round of the playoffs. This is what I'm hoping the goal is. He plays Minnesota, first round of the playoffs, I think. Okay, he plays Minnesota. That's an easy defense. Then he plays Atlanta. Then he plays Detroit. Then he plays Atlanta again. Those are wins. Those are big games written all over it. That's big game written all over it. So that's big for me. That's big for me. Because if I keep him and he continues to do what he does, that's big games written all over it. Playing against some bad defenses right there. And that would be in the playoffs. So I'm still trying to scout that out and figure out kind of just what I'm doing. Now, is Gronk going to be my set? No, I'm picking him up. Going to see what he does this week. If he does good, then I'll keep him. And like I said, that's not a lock yet. But I would definitely, if you're in a situation like I am, you could definitely look at Gronk. And defenses, you could look at Washington's Cardinals even. They're playing Miami. They had a good week. They did not play very well against Seattle. They got 0, but they've been pretty solid. They're averaging 5 a game. I was going to pick up the Patriots, but I don't know if I am going to pick up the Patriots or not. They've struggled this season. They've not had a very good defense. But they are playing against the Jets, and I think that's an opportunity for them to get back on for them to possibly get back on the winning side of things. And I might put them in because the Jets are awful. You know how I am against the Jets. They're awful. So that's just kind of something, I kind of want to see there. But obviously, Chris Carson's questionable. Keep your eyes out. I know it's only Tuesday. You got time. But Coach Pete Carroll said Carson will test out his foot Friday and evaluate him Saturday to determine if a return is possible Sunday at Buffalo. John Boyle, the Seattle official site, reports. So going to keep my eyes out for that. If need be, I will probably put in David Johnson. He had a bye week. He played this week against the Jaguars. So there's definitely a good chance there of him having a pretty good game. I'm not starting DJ Moore this week. Started him once. Experiment didn't go well. Benching him again. Don't know what I'm going to do with him. I might either use him as trade bait to get a tight end or something. But definitely, more than likely, DJ Moore will not be starting much longer. Devontae Adams, Rodgers, and their favorable matchup against the Niners this week because they are the Niners. They're injured, that kind of stuff. Allen Robinson, put him in. He had a big week last week, 14 points. He's had a couple back-to-back big weeks. He's had 18, 16, 9, 5, 7, 14. So he's had a couple big weeks this season. Ever since Foles has taken over, he's been very solid, averaging 10 a game, position ranked 10. So he's going to give you around that 9-10 range, which I'm perfectly fine with. Kittle's obviously out. Will be done for the season. I am playing Gurley again. He only had 10 last week, but his position ranks 13 points a game. They're playing against Denver, who defense is not very good. I'm hoping that this offense is going to dominate Denver. He's going to have a good game. Butker, I'm playing. Defense, Rams defense, I obviously will be benching because they are on a bye week. So, kind of just that kind of stuff. Elliott, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to keep Elliott, if I'm not going to keep Elliott, whatever I'm going to do. But at the moment, Elliott is still going to start. He's got Pittsburgh, then a bye, then Minnesota, Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati. So a couple banged-up defenses there, which I'm hoping he get on the right track. But he has a tough game this week with the defense, and he goes into a bye week. So either way, next week I won't be playing him. So I think this will probably be it for Elliott. If he has a bad game, I'll go into the bye week, evaluate trade ideas, look over my options, and then come out of the bye week and possibly trade him. So this is kind of one of those things for me. It's almost like a thing, this is a big scouting week. If he has a bad week, I'll go into the bye week, start someone over him, and in the week that he plays, I'll probably get rid of him, maybe trade him, figure it out. Because, I don't know if he's going to do much against Pittsburgh, but his past 3 weeks have been awful. 4, 5, 7. He had 5 against Washington, not a very good defense. He's had 4 against Arizona, not an overpowering defense either, and he had 7 against Philadelphia, not an overpowering defense either. So, I'm hoping that he could somehow turn this thing around and get some good points. That's my whole goal, because that's a big name you're taking out of my roster. That's a lot of points you're taking out there. So, he's still 7th, and he's still, I'm hoping that, he is much better. And obviously, Chris Carson, just keep your eyes out on that one. He comes back, that would be very big, but I'm not too sure if he will. Just keep your eyes out on that one. Like I said, you just want to watch out, make sure, it's only Tuesday, you got until Sunday, but, just keep your eyes out, especially with the waivers. Tomorrow will be a big waiver day. You just got to keep your eyes out for that. So, yeah. And my other lineup, I won 94-83. This is my lineup I'm rocking this week. Deshaun Watson, James Robinson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, A.J. Brown, Rams defense on a bye, Daniel Carlson. My benches, Kenyon Drake, Antonio Gibson, Chase Claypool, Chris Godwin. He's questionable right now. I'm still debating on what I'm going to do with him. He's questionable, but, I'm hoping that he plays this week. And Burrow, bye week, Swift is playing, but I'm benching him as well. Burrow did the job last week. He did the job last week. He had a good week last week. So I'm going to keep him. That was kind of my thing. If he does well, I'm going to keep him as my backup. So he's going to be my backup quarterback, Joe Burrow, more than likely for now on. So that should be pretty good there. And as for waivers, I made one move, added Washington defense, and dropped DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, I'm probably going to drop. He had a bad week last week. I drafted him. I'm just not, I'm just not 100% sure on if I'm completely sold. I'm picking up Washington's defense just because I'm confident that they're going to have a decent game against the Giants offense. Hopefully maybe an interception or 2 in there with Jones playing. That's the goal. Keenan Allen had a big week last week, 12 points. He hopefully could turn out. Hopefully Evans, this is a sign of something good too. Hunter Henry had another iffy week. I know he's got potential. I know he could be a solid guy. I just hope that he can somehow turn this one around, because that would be well appreciated. A.J. Brown had another good week last week, a touchdown again. When he's healthy, is almost dominant. 1 touch or 4. This is when he's done. Ever since he was, he got injured, played Denver, had 3 points. Then injured, bye week, came off of the bye week, 14 points, 17 points, 21 points, 8 points. So he's been everything that I've asked and some for him. Picked him up off of waivers, obviously. Hill had a big week, 21. Like I said, they're going against Carolina, not a great defense. I would recommend starting him. Helaire, he had a tough week last week. They are going against Carolina as well, not a great defense. I would recommend there. James Robinson against Houston. It's a team that could trade some big defenders away at the deadline, so I'm going to recommend starting him. He's 14.1 points per game. He's been everything dominant. Watson, I'm starting him as well. They're going against Jacksonville. Not a great defense either there. Especially Jacksonville might be sellers at the deadline. You might see some bigger names come out of there for draft picks and things like that. So that's going to be interesting. So those are kind of my lineups. And like I said in my other league, Kittle or Carson, you just got to watch out for it, right? You just got to watch out for that and see, if he is healthy to play. So that's obviously the hope that he is healthy to play. With all that being said, now we move on to the next topic, which is the NFL trade deadline. Today is the trade deadline. Kind of just kind of all this kind of stuff. I'm going to track kind of some of it for you guys. Not much stuff has gone on yet. I said this a couple of days ago or yesterday. I've heard a lot involving the Stephon Gilmore stuff. So this is from this was Tuesday. This was today at 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This was it. So this is the most recent. There's a tracker on here. This is one of the most recent things that have came out. I was from Diana Rossini, who is a ESPN reporter. After speaking with a few GMs around the NFL, I've learned multiple teams who have called the Patriots about cornerback Stephon Gilmore were told by New England they want a first-round pick and a player in exchange for the 2019 AP Defensive Player of the Year. This was yesterday. Another deal, the Chargers trading Desmond King. Quan Alexander got traded. Jets are working. Avery Williamson obviously got traded. So the big deal right now, I think, is Gilmore. If he gets traded, that's going to be interesting to see where he lands. I think some teams who could be in need are the Bills, although they did trade a lot for it, or they did just spend a lot of money on him. To kind of run through some things for the Jets and the Giants. The Jets, I think some guys that are on the market are Jenkins, Crowder, Darnold's definitely there, and I think Gore's there, and I also think you have a shot at getting rid of May, possibly. May, probably not, but you might be able to get him for something. You're going to probably see 2-3 of those guys leave the Jets. The Jets are probably going to be selling. And then as for the Giants, I think Tate, Ingram are your main guys there. I think Tate and Ingram, probably your main guys are going to get rid of, if anything. Don't know about any other players, but those are your kind of main guys there that if they're on the, if there was somebody to be on the chopping block, for the New York Giants, I would say it's them. And as for the Jets, they're going to be sellers. And it stinks to be sellers because that usually means you're not in a very good position or contention trying to make a push for anything. But definitely, it's going to be interesting. So, I think the Gilmore's the big thing. And like I said, usually we still are about 3 hours away from the trade thing. But usually the most deals happen around 2:33 to 4-ish. You usually get the most deals there. You'll get a lot of breaking news stuff there. That's usually where the most deals will happen. That's usually the main area for deals. You'll get a lot of deals around that area. Now, you're going to get some earlier, too. But guys like Gilmore, where you might be battling for the last second for him, where you have multiple people calling up about him, there's definitely a chance that, he could be gone. And if he is, that's going to be interesting. That's definitely going to be crazy if he's gone. I don't know what team could possibly get him. There's probably a couple teams out there. I'm sure a team in contention. I mean, I guess maybe if you really wanted to, the Dolphins maybe. But the Dolphins have so many first-round picks, they probably want to spend them. The Bills possibly. They've Trey White and Gilmore. Gilmore could make his reunion back with the Bills. If Trey White and Gilmore are, back together, then, obviously that'd be obviously pretty solid, I think, for the Bills. That would be a nasty secondary. You'll be adding on to an already stacked secondary for the Buffalo Bills. So I think, a couple of teams definitely are probably there. You won't know what teams, but I'm sure definitely a couple of teams are calling up about that. So, it's going to be interesting to see, what happens with the trade deadline. I don't know if it's going to be as active as others. You might get no trades. You might get some trades. I'm sure you're going to get trades. But obviously, that's kind of just the whole kind of deal there with the New York Giants and New York Jets. New York Jets, the Jets are sellers. Not much to think about for the New York Jets. So that's kind of your gist of the trade deadline. I mean, the Jets, we get rid of a player, we get something back. This is what we're trying to do, get draft picks. So, I'm hoping that, if the Jets do trade a very good player away, I'm hoping we get something better than just a fifth. I'm hoping we get a first, a second, something like that. That's what we want. Jets already have 2 first-round picks, so it's going to be interesting. So I'm hoping that's hoping the New York Jets, obviously, hoping the New York Jets, make some good moves. Even if that means they are selling, I'm hoping their selling is a good move. Like, not getting rid of a guy for a 5th-round pick. Like, getting rid of a good player for a 2nd round or a 1st round is respectable, okay? But, that's the problem, too, is, like, you sometimes want those 1st-round picks from the bad teams. Teams that are get you the high picks. Like, the Jets got a 1st-round pick from the Seahawks. But that's going to be late round in the 1st round. It's going to be late in the 1st round. So the Jets at the moment have 2 1st-round picks. If we could somehow trade, put some things together and get another 1st round, that'd be good, I think. So, or even just a 2nd-round pick, whatever there. But anyway, that's what I got for the podcast today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'll be back here tomorrow with some more sports. We'll be talking more sports. We'll be talking about probably recapping the deadline. Kind of just after that, recapping the deadline. Talk a little bit of Yankee stuff. There's some Yankees news there in the offseason. So kind of just that kind of stuff. But with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.